Hi, I'm Chris Merriman from Manufacturers Network. We're a UK-based performance consultancy and Shingo affiliate, focused mainly on the manufacturing sector. All industries within manufacturing, whether it's large global corporates or privately owned businesses or small and medium enterprises. And we help those organizations and their people be the best they can be. We do that through assessments in a kind of diagnostic phase, whether it's a full cultural assessment down to a more local maturity assessment. And then what follows is a series of services based around three main themes. One is strategic alignment, helping organizations to develop a common sense of purpose, whether that be with the vision, the mission, or the strategy. Secondly, around leadership development and culture, so a big focus on people. And then thirdly, around lean deployment for process improvement and optimization. So in all of this work, there's one tool or concept that I'm intrigued by because it appears in all of the following, whether it's in lean thinking, whether it's Six Sigma, continuous improvement, problem solving, whether it's agile and product innovation, or whether it's design thinking. This tool is central. It's claimed by everybody, and that tool, of course, is PDCA, or Plan, Do, Check, Act. So I'm wondering, what's so powerful about this tool that all these movements are making such a big claim on it? I'm also intrigued by the fact that it's been around since at least the 1950s, probably further back in the Stewart days, which makes it even older than I am. It was, of course, W. Edwards Deming who popularized Plan, Do, Check, Act, or Plan, Do, Study, Act. It became known as the Deming wheel, but he always referred to it as the Stewart cycle for continuous improvement and learning. And that's the key thing, I think, that we learn through this process of experimentation. And importantly, it's an iterative method that helps organizations transition out of stagnation into a system of continuous improvement. Now, as a manufacturing engineer, I first came across PDCA right at the beginning of my career, but it was only through my initial experience with Kaizen events where it came to life for me. What happened was I was working with the Garrett turbocharger business, supplying turbos to all the major European car and truck manufacturers. And Ford Motor Company were a major client at the time. They were on a lean journey, and they sent some consultants to help us start our continuous improvement process. And that's where I engaged with the first Kaizen events. And what I noticed this consultant doing was encourage ideas. And whenever an idea came forward, he did two things. Firstly, he recognized the idea. He said, "Thank you, that's a great idea, really interesting." But the second thing he did was to ask, okay, so how could we test this idea? What's the quickest way we could do it? Could we test it this afternoon? So what the consultant was doing was being deliberate in encouraging more ideas through recognition, but also encouraging rapid experimentation, which is where the real learning applies and where we can gain confidence about the viability of this solution. And that was a really eye-opening for me. So here's the thing. If we, rather than relying on assumptions and just confidence in our gut, if we treat every change as an experiment, large or small, this is where the magic happens, because what we're saying is nobody has ever made this change with this process, in this environment, with these people at this time. No one's done that before, so no one knows for sure what's going to happen. So if we treat it as an experiment, we're opening our minds to what the outcome truly is. And if we put the right measures in place, then we can objectively make that assessment and then take the time to thoroughly analyze and review and digest what that's saying. That's the power of the check and the act part of PDCA, and that's what differentiates it from, traditional forms of making change. And so we're testing our hypothesis, and we're doing it through repeated sets of experiments. It's continuous learning, it's continuous improvement. That's why it's the heartbeat of continuous improvement. PDCA, therefore, is the real embodiment of the Shingo principle, embrace scientific thinking. It's because it starts at the Gemba. This is where we're asking questions, having constructive dialogue, making observations, and generating ideas. These ideas for improvement become our hypothesis. We form a hypothesis or a theory. What if we change this? And we predict what's going to happen, and we establish how we're going to measure that, how are we going to test that. We're really setting up an experiment as if we are in the lab. Then we run the experiment, of course, the do part of the cycle, and then we objectively assess how closely did the actual results match what we predicted based on our theory. And of course, where it's worked well, we will bake that in as the new standard. And that gives us a chance of sustaining the improvement. Where it hasn't gone so well, where there's a gap or it's just not achieved what we expected, then we ask why. And that's where we learn. It's not failing, it's every experiment yields some learning if we approach it with this mindset. And therefore, decisions are made on evidence rather than opinion. We need to show some humility to the facts and the data and be guided by what that's telling us. So importantly, PDCA allows for failure, which our organizational cultures don't usually accommodate very well. One of the reasons is that our education systems are based on achieving maximum grades and gaining entry to the next level, which means failure is to be avoided. Mistakes are not encouraged, and we become scared. And if you add to that any semblance of an autocratic culture where the finger of blame might be pointed, then we're going to retreat even further. Of course, we should be asking why rather than who. And what this means is we need to create a psychologically safe environment where it's encouraged to have a go, to make a trial, and if it doesn't work out, then we've always learned something. Hence the importance of leading with humility and respect for every individual in creating a psychologically safe working environment. So much better to respond to mistakes with what have we learned, what can we do different next time, than recriminations and blame. So PDCA doesn't just apply at the process level or the product level. It applies at the enterprise level. A couple of examples. It applies with strategy development and deployment. When you're developing a strategy or you're building a plan, of course, and then you're deploying that plan, and any good organization will do a very thorough and objective assessment at the end of that cycle of how well did that go, what's worked well, where have we achieved success, where's our strategy yielded the business benefits and impacts we needed, where did it fall down, what could we do better next time, so that we build that in to the next cycle of strategy development and deployment. It's a big PDCA cycle. And the other area, of course, is in business startups, as Eric Ries in his book, The Lean Startup, highlighted many examples where we can now make a science out of developing products and services. The product now becomes the experiment through the use of methods such as minimum viable product, by rapid experimentation, the agile methods which enable that learning to be harnessed very quickly, And that customer feedback is used to make better decisions and to make more likely that we're going to have business growth and business success. So PDCA has such wide application. So PDCA, when you experience its transformational power, it changes the way you think, it changes the way you act, it changes the way you make decisions, and it embeds a spirit and a culture of continuous improvement in your organization. So I would simply end by encouraging you to experiment more with PDCA.